Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good morning, everyone. Last time we discussed about smiling and laughing, how this could be interpreted in terms of consciousness within the Theravada, within the range of Theravada fundamentals. We described about 6 types of laughs, 6 types of smiles, I would say. 3 of them can be categorized as laughs, while 4 can be categorized as laughs, while 3 can be categorized as smiling. 2 can be categorized as smiling. The third smile, whether it's to be called laugh or smiling, that's something we can decide later. Then all these smiling and laughing is done with somanassa sahagata chitta, consciousness accompanied with joy, because we cannot have the gesture of smiling or laughing without the happiness in mind, without piti and without somanassa. The joy and also the happiness should be there. Then now we move on to another aspect of the Chittaja Rupas, that is to discuss how the activities such as singing, dancing, playing music and crying, how these activities are done. What type of consciousnesses are involved in it. That's seems not like, some may say that it is not very relevant to the practice, but it can be under some context. Normally, singing, dancing and playing music, when we hear about this conventionally, we feel like it is something done with the joyful or playful mind, lobhamula chittas, because such activities mostly involve enjoyment in the sense of sensual enjoyment is always associated with the lobhamula consciousness. Therefore, in most of the cases, singing, dancing and playing music is done with lobhamula chittas. But there are instances on which some people, some beings have performed these activities with a wholesome consciousness, wholesome mindset, and they have had good results because of these things, especially when venerating the triple gem or the high personages such as the Buddhas and Pacceka Buddhas. By praising them or showing them the respect through these gestures, by singing, dancing and playing music, some have accumulated great merit into their sansaric journey. So therefore, it is important to have some basic understanding on such things. So today's lecture would be about singing, dancing, playing music, and then finally crying. So the first 3 would be taken as a one group. There is a very famous statement given in the Runna Sutta. Runna Sutta. Buddha has stated in Pali, Runna midam bhikkhave ariyassa vinaye yadidam gitang. Runna is crying. Runna midam bhikkhave ariyassa vinaye yadidam gitang. Singing is equal in the dispensation of the nobles. Singing is equivalent to crying. Runna midam bhikkhave gitang. Runna equals to Gita. Gita here doesn't mean the song, it refers to singing. Singing is similar to crying. We can say the other way around, it's much better then. We'll just change it. Gita is Runna. So singing equals to crying in the dispensations of the nobles. Ariyassa vinaye. Then the second statement, Ummattaka midam bhikkhave ariyassa vinaye yadidan nachang. Nachang here means dancing. Nachang is equal to Ummattaka midam. It's sort of an activity of the insane. Ummattaka midam. Says, so it's an activity done by the insane people. Insanity we can call, sort of. It's like dancing, because it doesn't suit the noble beings. Then komaraka midam bhikkhave ariyassa vine yadidang ativelang danta vidansaka hasita. So danta ativelang. Velang means the boundary or the limit. Ativelang is going beyond that. Over laughing. Ativelang danta vidansaka hasitang. Danta vidansaka hasita, laughing, is komaraka. It's an act of child, a childish act. It's not something done by adults or grown-up people in the noble dispensation. If someone is smiling too much, or if someone cannot control his laugh, is excessively laughing, this is considered as immaturity. Dancing is considered to be some sort of insanity. Gita is similar to crying. Then tasmatiha bhikkave setughato gite. So it's better to remove the causes of Gita, the desire to sing. Setughato gite. Setughato nache. Cut off the defilements that cause dancing. Remove it. Then alangvo dhamma pamoditanang satang sitang sitamattaya. For the ones who have rejoiced in Dhamma, ones who have reason, it's okay just to make a slight smile. It's not to laugh, but just to smile. Just a little bit of a smile. Satang sitamattaya. Not excessively laughing loudly or moving the limbs and moving the body parts. It's better just to have a slight smile. So it's not important. It's because smiling is sometimes done by the Buddhas even. And we saw that Sita and Hasita could happen even to Arahants. So therefore, smiling was not considered completely a disturbance for the practice. But Nacha and Gita surely doesn't suit monks. If someone does these activities, a monk, he commits a dukkata offense. Dukkata offense means he is committing an offense, like it's a wrongdoing. He has to confess afterwards. Singing and dancing. This also includes playing music, making drum beats or playing a musical instrument, or even clapping for the beat. So to a rhythm. So they all involve breaking the precepts. Precepts means a certain dukkata. There are a lot of precepts for monks. Just one activity doesn't violate his monkhood. It's a fault, right? He should confess and correct himself. So these three activities. Now then we have to also add playing music, vadita, which is also not recommended by the Buddha within the dispensation of the nobles. Already we have discussed about this matter. Regarding smiling, is there an offense for monks? That's also better to know at this moment. Yes, there is a offense for smiling. That is, while we are in the village, while we are in the lay houses, we are not supposed to smile excessively. Yes, smiling or laughing could happen, but the sound has to be very low. We have to we have to restrain ourselves not to smile or not to laugh actually loudly. In Sekhiyas, we have a rule mentioning na ujjaggikaya antara gare gamissamiti sikkaha karaniya, na ujjaggikaya antara gare nisidissamiti sikkaha karaniya, 2 training rules. We should restrain ourselves, or we should behave in a way na ujjaggikaya. We are not laughing loudly while while walking or sitting in the village. It also includes lying down. But in case of an incident that causes laugh, if it happens automatically, there is no offense, because sometimes we will not be able to stop our laugh seeing some incidences. But at that time, still we have to maintain the voice, the noise that we make. So if we just don't care or neglect the rule and laugh as we like with a high voice, then it's a offense. But within the monastery, there is no rules for these kind of activities. For example, singing and dancing and playing music, where one does, the monk does or bhikkhuni does, she or she commits the offense. There's no exempt from the place due to the place. There's no relief from the offense, or there's no allowance given based on the place. It's the activity is prohibited. The activity itself is prohibited. But smiling and actually laughing, loud laughing, is prohibited based on the location where the monk is. But in a monastery, it is not recommended. That's why the Buddha said it is similar to an activity of a child. So he never recommends monks or nuns laughing loudly. And then vadita, these three, this also involves a dukkhata offense. It's not only playing, even listening and watching dances and listening to music and listening to songs would also break the dukkhata, but there is an exception here. If the songs were heard while we are in the monastery, for example, a musical show is going on in the village while we are in the monastery, we could hear it, or someone is making a dance or singing a song within the monastery, some lay person has come, and in such occasions, even we listen to it, even we watch it, or even we enjoy it, there is no offense. But it's not recommended to do that. In terms of offenses, listening to music, listening to songs and watching dances is prohibited outside the monastery. But a monk or a nun, they themselves singing, dancing and playing music makes them to break like they are committing an offense by doing so, regardless of the place they are. Right, that is the vinaya aspect of these points. Now then, what is the activity, how the mind works, how the attabhava, the life, our mind and body works while these activities are done. As we have discussed so far, when the intention arises to sing, we haven't discussed the vachi vinyati yet. When we have intention to sing, our body moves, the parts of our voice, body parts involved in voicing moves, and also breath comes up, a body of air comes out, and then we utter the sounds. So mind is greatly involved in these activities. Mind is involved in moving the body parts and also articulating the sound, producing the sound, and modifying the sound. Even in dancing, our behavior is modified. The physical gestures, physical postures, how we move it is modified also by the mind. In that sense, kaya viññatti, the bodily intimation, is highly involved. While singing, both the bodily intimation and verbal intimation are involved. In Vadita is the bodily intimation, and we somehow make an effort to bring forth a certain beautiful or attractive, adorable sound. Now, these activities, these are physical activities. Even though the words are used, we can still call it physical activities. These physical activities are done with the involvement of a mind. It's not possible that the body itself does it without being conscious. Then one can ask the question, what happens to sudden activities that happens? Even according to Buddhism, whatever physical activity, if it was done deliberately, if the mind is involved, it is activity done with chittaja rupas. How fast it happens doesn't matter here. Then what are the consciousness that are involved here? Now, it's very important to know, because now think, this is the person and he does the activities of singing. He does dancing or playing music, because we have talked about laughing and smiling. Playing music. Now think, now this body is it modifies according to these activities. A sound is uttered, take it as a one unit. Always we have to keep in mind, the mind and body acts as a one unit. When the mind is mean to have a certain intention, body moves accordingly. And those movements are modified according to the mind by the kaya viññatti. Kaya viññatti. So the intention, chitta, together with chetana, this is the body movements, right? Body movements, the body changes. So this modification, how the body changes according to the consciousness is due to kaya viññatti, bodily intimation. Bodily intimation. Kaya and vachi viññatti. Viññatti is verbal, bodily and verbal intimations. So they act as the bridge here, in between. Here also we have the production of chittaja rupas. We can put it when we come to those lectures. We will extensively study on those subjects. So now the movements happen. In the end, if we talk about the entire big picture, chitta chetasikas cause the bodily movement. That's what is happening. Bodily movement and speech is done with chitta chetasikas. They are the main cause. Now, depending on the activity, depending on the outcome, what sort of activity, whether it's wholesome or unwholesome, whether it has a bad result or a good result in terms of karma, is solely depending on what type of a consciousness it was involved in these activities. So, how to decide these consciousnesses? It is objective ethic. In Buddhism, we are talking objective ethics, like what the Immanuel Kant suggested. The Buddha was of opinion that the ethics are ultimate. Good and bad is ultimate. It is not subjective. Consequentialism, utilitarianism all suggested that these are relative. Some activities can be good under some scenarios, that the same activity could be regarded as bad or not good under another scenario. But according to Buddha's teachings, as Immanuel Kant suggested, it's not that the Buddhism is taught by Immanuel Kant, but he also suggested a similar theory. That's how in Western philosophy we learn. So what the Buddha said was, good and bad has been ultimately decided. What is good and what is bad? I shall talk about them when we come to the lectures of karma. What is good and bad? Some said it is decided by the Almighty God. But according to Buddhism, it is something, a natural law, that we are able to decide what is good and bad. It's not our topic here. So anyway, now we have two types of consciousnesses. We have akusala chittas and kusala chittas. If Arahant is doing the same activity, it becomes a kiriya chitta. Now, these consciousnesses are causing these activities. What would be the now how these activities are designed? Now we are little bit diverting away from the topic, but it would, since it is quite interesting and useful, I'll just take few steps on this direction. Now, what would be the outcome? That matters. But outcome in the sense, sometimes the same outcome could have happened with completely contrasting consciousnesses. Now, in the sense, outcome means if a certain being dies due to this activity, right? Now think about two scenarios where two beings die due to the activity of the same person. On one occasion, he was trying to save the being. Now think a certain creature was on the desk or some place. He wanted to save it, but while he is moving, he's trying to save it from the finger, the ant. It got crushed and it died. It got crushed and it died. The outcome was the death of the bee. On another occasion, seeing a mosquito landing on his body, he crushed it. In this regard, on this occasion even, the animal has died. The same outcome. But in the previous occasion, his intention was to save the being, so we categorize or label it as a kusala intention, wholesome intention. But the outcome was the death of the being. On the second scenario, intention was to kill, and that was done by a akusala chitta. Obviously, intention of killing is a akusala. The same outcome, we had the same outcome, but two different consciousnesses. So whether it is going to give good results or bad results depends not on the outcome, but mainly upon the intention of the person. But I have to mention, in some sutras, Buddha has defined sila, the virtue, based on the outcome. 5 precepts, protecting the 5 precepts, keeping to the 5 precepts, is helpful to the society because it gives pleasant outcomes. It keeps you away from negative or bad outcomes, detrimental outcomes to the society. So therefore, it's better to practice the sila. And the consequences that you are going to experience due to these activities. So some sort of consequentialism is involved in sometimes when the Buddha explained about the sila. But in the ultimate sense, he was of a person who attributed the virtue to the intention of the being, not the outcome. So these are the main 2 schools in Western philosophy. How to decide the virtue. Some are based on the consequence, some are based on the intention. Immanuel Kant was a intentional based virtue. He preached about intentional based virtue. I forgot the actual name for this school. Then Jeremy Bentham, if my memory was correct, was one of the people who expressed that consequences are the criteria to decide the ethics. There were some other philosophers as well. Now think about dancing, singing, dancing, and playing music. Dancing and playing music. The same outcome. According to the Theravada teachings, the activity could be done with both wholesome and unwholesome chittas. If you are singing, playing music and dancing for our enjoyment, amusement, in order to make others happy, in order to get the praise, in order to show off, to build a career, these things are done with lobha mula chitta. They are done with unwholesome mindset. As an earning, as a living, or in order to make fun or to be happy. These are involved in sensual pleasures. At the same time, as we find in many stories, considerable number of stories, even in Theravada, apadanas, there are beings who perform these activities as a veneration to the triple gem, as a veneration to the beings who should be venerated. Singing songs to the Buddha, praising him, praising the Dhamma, praising the Sangha. Sometimes we hear in stories certain deities played their special instruments while Buddha was doing some special activities. Especially it is mentioned while he descended from the Devaloka to the human realm after preaching Abhidhamma. The deities played their instruments in terms as a gesture of showing respect. And some do dance in order to show the respect. So these three activities, singing, dancing and playing music, according to the Theravada context, can be done with the wholesome mindset. Mostly they are done with the unwholesome lobha mula chitta, but they can be done with wholesome consciousness. So the commentators, especially the Sutta Sangaha commentary, the commentator suggests that if these activities are done as a veneration to the triple gem, this could also include any other great being who deserves veneration, any a virtuous person. Yes, they all involve wholesome consciousnesses. But when done on other occasions, in concerts, in parties or whatever, name it. So on all these occasions, singing, dancing and playing music is done with unwholesome lobha mula chitta, which involves lobha attachment, lust or whatever it is. At the same time, these activities could be done with dosa mula chitta as well. Now, lobha mula chitta, and it can be done with dosa mula chitta as well. Why is that? Now, think about singing a song about missing the beloved one, about a song of separation. Dancing and showing the gestures that he or she is separated from someone, or something that a tragedy that happened to their family or to their country, whatever it is. So, and music could be played in order to express this feeling. Some are very good at this. So, therefore, singing, dancing, and playing music could also be done with the dosa mula chitta. With dosa mula chitta. So, in this regard, it is also possible to say, in my opinion, Vichikicca and Uddacha chitta could also happen during the process. Vichikicca is mainly involved in thinking about the correctness and wrongness of the phenomena, like whether there is whether certain activities are wholesome or unwholesome, or is there a result of vipaka of wholesome and unwholesome. So if someone does dancing or singing with this doubt, actually it seems like that chitta is not directly involved in the activity. It seems like, but in Theravada context, stealing can be done with all the 12 akusala chittas. So in this regard, if we apply this analogically, it seems singing, dancing, playing music could be done with the moha mula chittas as well. But the dosa mula chitta and lobha mula chitta involvement is very clear. It's very clear. If these things were done as a veneration to the triple gem, it is done with the wholesome chitta. But in between, since this is though it can be done with wholesome mindset, these are very attractive activities. They are appealing to lobha for sure. In my opinion, if you are doing it as a gesture of respect to the triple gem, even during the process, lobha mula chittas would surely arise during the process, because we do enjoy it while doing it. Even though, now think about a song that praises the Buddha's qualities. When the music is played, this is very difficult to maintain a complete wholesome mindset, isn't it? While we are singing such a song. Think about a very famous singer who sang in praise of the Buddha. Yes, we have the faith, we get the faith, listen to the song, but at the same time, it's covered, it's surrounded by some sort of lobha mula chittas, right? So I'm not sure, I don't think that it would make the wholesome deed omaka in this regard, because when you look into the stories, singing in praise of Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha has given enormous amount of benefits to the person in samsara. So I don't think involvement of lobha mula chittas in these activities, which are natural for these acts, would reduce the quality of the wholesome deed. I don't think so. But it's surely we should know that those chittas are involved. Even if we are singing something out of sadness, in order to express our sadness or loneliness, I think still lobha mula chittas would get involved when we think about the rhythm and the beauty of the song, attractiveness of the song. Yeah. So these activities. So the final message is: singing, dancing, and playing music are prohibited for monks and nuns. And Buddha has mentioned Buddha has equalized singing to crying in noble dispensation of noble beings, dancing to an act of insanity, and loud smiling as an activity of children. Then playing music also involves in these categories, and mostly they are done with the unwholesome mindset, especially involved with the lobha mula chittas. But sometimes they can be done with dosa mula chittas, and the involvement of moha mula chittas is also visible, or can be said that it's possible that it can be done with moha mula chittas. Then according to the context, according to the stories mentioned in the Theravada teachings, directly from the Tipitaka and also the commentarial explanations, kusala chittas can also be involved. And especially in the Attasala, it is mentioned when there is a very special offering called Saddha Puja. Saddha Puja. The puja done with sound, playing the drums or trumpets as showing the gesture of respect. This is mostly done in Sri Lanka in the Tooth Relic Temple every day. I think 2 times per day, morning and evening. We call it Thevava in Sinhalese. Before offering I think 3 times. Before the breakfast, before offering the lunch, and also to the Tooth Relic, and before offering the Gilampasa. Gilampasa is juice. It's like evening juice, evening drinks. So Saddha Puja is done, and Saddha Puja is when a preacher, a Dhamma preacher, is going to the seat, is going to preach the Dhamma. Normally, these drums are played, right? So that is, and in Attasala it is mentioned. It is one of the good danas, one of the 6 types of danas in terms of Abhidhamma. So in these activities, music is played to a rhythm. It's very attractive to listen. It's very nice to listen. Though monks are not allowed to play or ask them to play, we cannot say play the drums. No, we should not do that. But when we are being escorted to the seats, it's very pleasant. right? So these activities can be done. So the playing music is exclusively mentioned in the commentaries of Attasalini, and singing, playing instruments can be, the kusala involvement is clearly found in the Tipitaka itself and in many commentarial stories. So that would be the taking away message regarding these three activities. Then we come into crying. Crying. A word related to crying is parideva. Parideva. Parideva is exclusively crying or lamenting when at the loss of someone, especially saying or uttering their names, uttering their qualities. For example, why did you leave me? You had such and such qualities. To whom I am going to call my father again? How could I live without you? So these kind of, with these involved with these utterances, people, some beings who are unable to bear, especially the separations, would cry. It's a weakness of the mind. A person who is strong would not feel lonely normally, because a strong person, a strong man or a woman will be able to bear the life by him or herself. It doesn't mean that marriages are required for the society, and it's surely some people need the support of others, at least of friends. But if the person is strong enough, he or she will be able to sustain lonely, especially men can do that. And that's why ascetics, especially the bodhisattva, in many lives we can see in Jatakas, lived in forests without anyone, even without an attendant. I don't know how he spent his last days when he was very sick or very old. You would have certain issues how to deal with it for sure, because when you get old, it's difficult to sustain by your own self. But if in many occasions he would have been a meditator and would have managed it to some extent. So parideva is that when we are unable to bear the loneliness, or when we are unable to bear the losses we had, sometimes the property, losing the property, losing fame, when accusations are made on you, people sometimes are unable to bear this, unable to face this, these losses, accusations, separations. And also when one feels that he is going to die, he's about to be killed, on such occasions it's natural that the beings cry, uttering certain words which are not pleasant to listen, and even the ones who are listening sometimes may feel sad, because it expresses the inside suffering or feelings of the person. Words are very good tools of expressing the ideas. Words are very important, because only through words that even a Buddha could express his understanding to the world. He couldn't enlighten the beings through words. So it's very important that a person's eloquence, the command of the language, is very important in some regards to express the idea. So in this regard, parideva, when the person is uttering or lamenting about his or her conditions, it shows the inside, the feelings of the person. It even can cause sadness in others. That's why listening to others crying, we also sometimes feel very bad. Then in crying, another thing is, so parideva, crying is involved with sound. Even we don't utter the names, when we are crying, a certain voice comes out, which is not a pleasant thing to listen. Which is not a pleasant thing. Even animals, dogs, when children are crying, they understand that the person is in distress. It's a gesture of showing distress. The person is stressed. So sometimes the dogs try to console. The pets sometimes console their children of their masters. Even animals could sometimes feel this. It's not a pleasant sound. So crying involves, in most of the cases, it involves sound. Then another thing that is mostly involved is tears in crying. We call asu. Sound is chittaja, saddha. We haven't talked about sound yet as a Rūpa in our lectures. So these are involved in crying. These are involved in crying. If you remember, when we talked about smiling and laughing, there was a smile. It was apahasita, if I remember, atihasita. Yes, actually forgot it. Yeah, apahasita. In apahasita also, sometimes tears come out. But this is not considered as crying. In Sinhalese we call andima. Runnang. Tears coming forth due to intense smiling or laughing or joy, joyful tears, tears of joy, are not considered as part of crying. Here, according to the teachings, crying is exclusively with done with dosamula chitta. Done with dosamula chitta. And I think it's very difficult to deliberately cry if there is no reason. I don't know how actors and actresses does it. They have techniques to make them cry, but still I think they have to bring some emotional things into their mind in order to act crying. And that also can be effective to their lives, I heard, because they have to bring forth emotions that are not natural. Because normally if someone dies, that's a natural emotion that comes up. Right? We cry. And something happens, something joyful happens. When we are with our friends, when we are with our beloved ones. So naturally the smiling comes up. These are natural emotions. But if you are supposed to act and show, act as we are happy and act as we are sad while the cameras are on us, it's not easy. But that's their talent to bring forth these expressions. So anyway, the normal crying, whatever the crying is involved, is done with dosamula chittas only. Dosamula chittas only. Unlike singing, dancing and playing music, which could be done with kusala, akusala chittas and also lobhamula, dosamula, mohamula chittas. Like smiling is only done with lobhamula chittas, crying is done with dosamula chittas. With dosamula chittas. But that is not to say that the tears bursting out is not only with dosamula chittas, because there is a laugh which is termed as apahasita, which also involved oozing or bursting out tears of joy. Right? So this is the thing. Then when these activities are done, smiling, now we did it in the previous lecture, smiling, singing, playing music, dancing and crying. 5 activities. These activities, all these activities are done with manodwarika chittas. Bhavanga, Chalana, Upacheda, Manodwara Vajjana and 7 Javana. Tadalambana and Bhavanga. Now, which chittas are involved in these activities? We will later learn that actually we already studied the chittas that are involved in changing the gestures, postures. Because dancing, singing, all these activities, smiling, crying also needs bodily movements. So these, and also some involve sound. So these vinyati and chittaja rūpas are produced by the javana chittas. At the same time, if you remember in our counting, we involve manodwara vajjana chitta as well. So all these chittas, 29 kama javana chittas, These 29 Kama Javanas are 12 Akusala, then 1 Hasitupada, then 8 Mahakusala, and 8 Mahakiriya. Hasitupada is exclusively to smiling, not other activities. But when we take it general, we have to include it. Then the Manodvara Avajjana. Right, 30. 2 Abhiññāna Chittas are not necessary to take in here because Abhiññānas are involved in different physical activities, not these 5. So these 30 Chittas are the ones who are responsible for these activities. Out of them, smiling happens only with 4 Lobamula. Sorry, I made a mistake in the while preaching. It's smiling is exclusively with Somanasa Chitta, not Lobamula Chitta, right? It's only exclusively 13 Somanasa Sagata Chittas. I made a mistake there. Then crying is involved with 2 Dosamula Chitta, Domanasa Sagata. Then the remaining are involved with 12 Akusala and 8 Mahakusala. 8 Mahakriyas would never happen because Arahant would not sing, play, or music or dance. So it can only be done mainly by Putujanas. I don't think Anagamis would also involve in activities, such activities. I don't think so. Maybe there can be some Brahmas. To my knowledge, it cannot be done. Sotapannas surely could do that. Sakadagamis maybe they may get involved. Then these are the activities that are done. So crying, Sotapannas do cry, Putujanas do cry. Sakadagamis, not sure whether they could cry, but it is mentioned when Rahula was ordained by the Buddha under Sariputta. Suddhodana was an anagami by then. He came to the Buddha, and the commentators mention he came with immense sadness. Immense sadness. It doesn't mention about crying. So normally a Sakadagami's patiga, Kamaraga and patiga are very thin. It has been lessened. So we normally say it doesn't happen regularly and not very intense. Suddhodana, according to Dhammapada commentary, Adimatta Sokin. He came with strong sorrow. So it's something to be discussed whether Sakadagami could smile or not. So singing, playing music also involved in such, seems like possible. Not sure about that, but Sotapannas surely could do that. Putujanas, they no doubt, but even with Kusala Chitta they can do it. But Arahant would never do that. So it shows that even though singing, playing, dancing can be done with wholesome chittas, there is a limit in it. So there is some difference in it. Arahant could preach Dhamma like we do. I am preaching Dhamma with a wholesome mind. Arahant could, if I become an Arahant, for example, tomorrow and preach you, hopefully, preach you the Dhamma. So should be more restrained in my gestures than this for sure. But he would preach the same thing. I could preach the same thing, being an Arahant. But I may sing a song, but if I do, I break a dukkata, I break a precept. Now imagine if I do it with a wholesome mindset. While I initiate, it's always, because I know I'm breaking a rule, so there is an unwholesome mind going on. But if I continue neglecting that rule, I could do it with wholesome mindset. It's possible. If I do it purposefully, yes, in the beginning and whenever I recall it, a wholesome mind comes while neglecting the rules made by the Buddha. But I could do it with wholesome mind. But if I become an Arahant, for example, now since Arahant would never break the rule, now think a layperson who sings in praise of the Buddha becomes an Arahant as a layperson like Jasa. Would he ever sing before becoming a monk? No, he would not do that. So it shows that these activities of singing dancing and playing music, though they can be done with wholesome mindset, they are not like preaching Dhamma. Preaching Dhamma, a Putujana could preach Dhamma and the same Dhamma could be preached by him after becoming an Arahant. But singing, dancing and playing music could not be done like that. So it shows that even though the whole Kusala Chitta and Kiriya Chitta are very similar in many aspects, certain activities could not be done in such ways. So therefore, it's also something that we can keep it in mind, that certain behaviors, though certain behaviors could be done with wholesome mind, when it comes to an Arahant, it would not be possible. The Kiriya Chitta would not be involved in such a way. That's why Sitta, Asita, Vihasita, in my previous lecture, I said it seems like Vihasita can be made with wholesome Chitta, Kusala Chitta, but not with Kiriya Chitta. Not with Kiriya Chitta. A very good proof, very good, I'm not proving it, very good evidence for this, which would strengthen this argument. Not proving it because there is no exclusive information in the text. Seems like as a Attanomati, there can be some kind of proof for that, is singing, playing music and dancing according to the Theravada tradition can be done with wholesome Chitta, but it's very clear it will not be done by an Arahant or an Anagami. Anagami, I think it would not be done. Arahants would not do that. Right? If my knowledge is correct, I still leave some part for that because sometimes the doctrine is very vast. I haven't read the entire thing. So if maybe Arahant Brahma had done a music, I don't think because the way that it goes, it doesn't seem like that. Normally those instruments were played by the devas, deities, right? So therefore, it seems like certain activities done with the wholesome mind, Kusala Chitta, could not be done by the Kiriya Chitta. So that also something quite important in our studies. So today I'm going to end the lecture. Today we discussed 4 activities, because smiling and laughing was done in the previous lecture. Singing, playing music, dancing and crying. So what are the chittas involved in? And they are done with chittaja rupas. So our intention was not to analyze the chittaja rupas, how they are involved here, but what sort of chittas are involved in producing chittaja rupas and performing these activities. So that would be the lecture, and I hope you got some valuable information through this. And next day I'm going to discuss about breathing in Theravada teaching, which is a controversial and very interesting topic to discuss. Yes, so I give the forum for the Q&A session. Buddha sasanang chirantittatu. Buddha sasanang chirantittatu. Buddha sasanang chirantittatu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.